Welcome to this video in which I'm going to be talking about the MBA application to Cornell, the S.C. Johnson College of Business. So in case you are applying this year, 2018-2019, then you have come to the right place. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through what it requires for you to get into Cornell, as well as we will dissect the essay questions. There are some very interesting prompts that we have this year, and I'll be giving you a strategy and a plan to approach your essays. So stay with me till the end of this video. All right. So let's first look at the important deadlines. The first deadline is the 10th of October, followed by the second deadline in November, which is the 15th of November. Okay, so it's going to be 10th of October, 15th of November, and then you have the Jan round, which is the 3rd of January. Now, a lot of students ask around what is this confusion between the October round and November round. Very honestly, I think Cornell did not want to keep it in September along with the other top 10 schools. So it kind of put it to October, which is at par with most schools in the 10 to 20 range. But it also created this November deadline so that people who are busy applying to other places in October, I think they smartly kept it in November so that you have a lot of breathing space in November, because most of the other deadlines in round 2 are going to be in January. So I think this is more of a marketing thing. I would not really worry between an October and a November round. Right, so both are kind of okay, because if you look at the notification, in the case of the October round, you're going to get the final notification on the 15th of November. And if you're applying in the November round, you will get the notification on the 10th of January 2019. In case you're not able to meet these two rounds, January round, not a problem, right? I have said this earlier, first two rounds, you have a good chance. Third round of death. So I'm not even going to look at the April round, which is the 10th of April. If you're an international applicant, you should be applying in one of the three rounds, October, November, or January. Right? Now, let us understand a little bit more about the school. So Johnson, in terms of the stats, last year we have had a class which had an average GMAT of 699. Okay, and a lot of us ask, well, a sub 700 GMAT score, does this mean that the school is not at par with the big ones where the average is 730? Well, I'll tell you, most schools take GMAT if they are trying to compete with the rankings, which is where a lot of GMAT scores go up. But given that Cornell is a relatively smaller class size, I think what they want to choose is they want to choose quality and they want to choose diversity. They want to choose the profiles of candidates than just a big GMAT number, correct? And I think it's easier to manipulate the numbers when you have a larger class size, right? You can always bring in, like, say, 50 Indians with a great GMAT score. But jokes apart, I think the range speaks. So the 80% mid-range is 650 to 740. If you are an Indian applicant and you are watching this video and you're thinking I can apply with a 670, 680, probably not a great idea. I would still push for a score in the excess of 700 if you are applying to Cornell, right? Facts about Cornell, it's one of the Ivy League schools, right? So being Ivy League, it enjoys a great reputation both in the US as well as in India. The brand name of Cornell is it has a very high recall. Maybe not so much for the Johnson School of Business, but I think Cornell itself has a good brand name in both India and the US. One more thing about the Cornell program, if you see, they talk about the immersion learning. So immersion learning is where you have experiential learning. You actually have projects with the industry. They actually have a fund that you get to manage. They also have an in-house consulting, thing where you actually consult for companies. So in case you're looking at finance or consulting, these are, great ways for you to really learn what is taught in the classroom, correct? So I think that's the key differentiator that Cornell offers. In fact, that is reflected even in the essays. So without much ado, let's get directly into the essays and try to understand what is it that they are looking at. Very interesting. So they have three basic essays, right? The first is the goals essay. Okay, and if you have already gone through the application, you know that it's perhaps one of the toughest essays to write. Let me do this. Let me just read out the prompt from the Johnson website. It says a statement of your goals will begin a conversation that will last throughout admission process and guide your steps during the MBA program and experience. To the best of our understanding today, note, to the best of your understanding today, okay, which means your plans can change post MBA, but as of now, please share your short-term and long-term goals by completing the following sentences and answering the enclosed short answer question. Now, here is the catch, right? You have two sentences, okay? The first sentence is, immediately post MBA, my goal is to work as an blank role at blank company within blank industry. So what you're really looking at is role, company, and industry. Correct? Now, the first thing that I would encourage you to do is go to LinkedIn. Okay? So I'm giving a link below. Go to LinkedIn and try to research on the kind of companies, and I'm also giving you a list of companies that usually come onto Cornell. So just try to do your research, right? And try to pick. So here is a question that is more to do with, are you clear about being employable? Are you employable? Are you realistic about the investment that it will take for you to do an MBA? Not just in terms of time, but also in terms of money, in terms of energy, correct? So here is a very important tip. If you are an Indian applicant applying to any school actually, but specifically since we are looking at Cornell, there are three possible areas where you have a very high employability, where you can potentially stay back in the US, correct? The first is technology sector. So when you look at technology, so I'm giving you some examples, okay? So you can fill in the blank. Let us say that you have worked in, let's say, a Flipkart in India, correct? So here is how I would complete it. Immediately post MBA, my goal is to work as a product manager at Amazon within the retail industry, correct? So now you have very clear, you have product management, Amazon, and retail industry, correct? Let me give another example. Let us say you are getting into finance, right? In that case, you would say my goal is to work as an equity analyst at Goldman Sachs within the, let's say, emerging markets, right? So if I could pick that as a industry, or if you have any background in a particular industry, you can mention that. So you have perhaps three things. So first, as I mentioned, is tech sector. The second is finance, and the third would be consulting, right? So in that case, you would say my goal is to work as an associate, right, at McKinsey, right, within, let's say, the digital space, right? So a lot of companies digitizing, so you want to be part of that. So you need to be very specific in writing this sentence. Now, what is more interesting is they have another sentence which says, so what is your targeted job role? What is the targeted job company in the industry? These are the three things you need to write. There is another sentence which says, in 5 to 10 years post MBA. 5 to 10 years, okay? My goal is to work as role, company within industry. Now, in this, you can play around. See, what they are really looking at is, does this guy know what he's going to do, right? Does he have a realistic idea of where life would take him in 5 to 10 years? Because eventually what they are seeing is his goal of 5 to 10 years clear enough for him to actually have the post-MBA goals clear? If you're clear where you're going to be in 2030, you'll be clear where you want to be in 2020, which means you're also clear about what an MBA has to offer. So I think that's the larger scheme in this essay. I would probably be a little more liberal in keeping my post MBA goals. So not too lofty. If you're going to write, my goal is to work as the CEO at Facebook, right? It's going to be weird because, let's be honest, 5 to 10 years, that's probably not realistic. But at the same time, if you're going to undersell yourself, if you're going to put in a post MBA career goal which is not very inspiring, correct, that also could cause problems. So you need to pick a post MBA goal that is somewhere in the middle, right? And I think that's a very good exercise, going to LinkedIn and doing that research, because almost every school will require you to do that. We have worked with a lot of successful candidates who have applied to Cornell and who have gotten in. And in case you need any help with regards to your essays, with regards to your post MBA goals, with regards to your clarity, right, in terms of expressing it, please let us know. We would be glad to work with you. All right. There is one more part, the last part, which is not a sentence in the same essay, which says, how has your experience prepared and encouraged you to pursue these goals? Remember, you have 250 words, which includes these sentences, right? So what you're really going to do is try to write something very strong where you talk about your transferable skills. That's the key. Your transferable skills. Don't talk about the fact that you're hardworking or that you're very analytical because you did engineering. All of that doesn't matter. Tell me in your experience. That's why it says, how has your experience prepared you? It is not, why are you best equipped? Correct? So you need to pick very specific skill sets from what you have done. Again, don't rehash your resume over here. There is not enough space. Okay, you're going to talk only about the specific skills that you bring to the table and why those goals. If you're saying consulting, why consulting, right? There has to be something in your background, right, in terms of problem solving, in terms of having a multi-sectoral approach to a problem, something that tells me that you are the best guy for consulting, right? That's going to be the challenge. Right? That's the first essay. Just to recap, 2 sentences. You need to do your research on LinkedIn. Try to go to Cornell website. Look at the kind of companies. Try to see something where your H1B visa will be sponsored. As I mentioned, tech, consulting or finance, one of these 3 would be a safe bet if you're an international candidate. And talk about what transferable skills you bring to the table. The second one is the impact essay. I love this impact essay because it talks about you reaching out to the candidate. So let me just read out this line. We encourage you to engage with our students, alumni, faculty, and professional staff. You may choose to connect with them via email or phone or in person during one of our campus or off-campus events. As you seek their input and insight, please be respectful of their time and prepare a few discussion points or questions in advance. Okay. Now, what they are saying is reach out to us. In case you have not done that, go back to what I said earlier essay. You have the LinkedIn details. You know who are the alum. Ideally, I would probably send out 2 emails or 2 messages. The first is to establish connection. I think what happens a lot of times when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, we tend to be a little desperate, and our first message itself is a long message which is ask, right? And we ask questions which are Googleable, terrible sin. Okay, so we ask, okay, can you tell me, what is the average GMAT score? Or we try to be intelligent and we ask questions like, can you tell me, how are the placements? Too abrupt for the first message, first email, however you are reaching out to them, correct? My recommendation, first, reach out to them, just say hi. I saw your profile. If you see common connections, tell them, these are the common connections that we have. You went to this college, So if you are an Indian, you try to find another Indian, try to make sure that you build a rapport, just say hi, and maybe you can add a word of praise and say, you know what, you are doing great. I admire that you are at a school that, is my dream school. First, that should be your message. Once you have established that message, maybe a little later you can say, you know what, I just wanted to let you know that I'm applying to Cornell this year, right? The Johnson College of Business, I'm applying this year, and this is my profile. I'm so excited, blah, 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 correct? And perhaps the third message is when you kind of, broach the topic and say, you know what, I have this very specific question, and always pick a question that requires an opinion. Don't pick a question that requires data. Right? So pick something that is non-Googleable, pick something that is based on opinion, and people like to share their experiences. So what I would write is probably something where you get to know about their experiences, correct? And one more cardinal sin, please do not post your profile and say, what are my chances of getting in? Okay, don't ask people to predict that probability. Doesn't work, right? So reach out to them. Now here is the actual question, right? It says, at Cornell, we value students who create impact. Please indicate the opportunities for impact that you have identified through engagement with our community and describe how what you learned has influenced your decision to apply to Johnson. Now, one thing about any top school, especially a school like an Ivy League school like Cornell. So this is something that one of my students told me. Like after he went into the B school, he said, Arun, by the time I got to the second year, my required courses, okay, was just about 3 or 4 hours a week. Just imagine, second year, you're spending all this money, you're going to the US, and you have just 3 or 4 hours of required courses. These are courses you have to attend. The rest of the time is up to you, right? Now, what you will learn outside the classroom will be a lot more than what you learn inside the classroom, and that's really how the MBA experience should be. Correct? In fact, most of these US MBA courses are created in such a way that it is the students who actually drive most of these, right? All the community activity, all the clubs, everything is student driven. So the question really is, what is it that you're going to do? Last thing that they want is someone who's just on this joyride, okay, who says, oh, what, everybody else will be doing the hard work and I'm just going to sit and enjoy the fruits of their labor. So what is it that you bring to the table? What is it that you can do? What is the impact? A couple of things that you should not do. Though we have a good 500 words, please don't spend time explaining in excruciating detail who all you got through. Right? That is another mistake I've seen. Because they told you to get in touch, they'll say, I reached out to this person, I spoke to him and he explained to me, this is what they do, this is what they do. Don't do that, right? If you have attended an info session or you have spoken to an alum, mention that as the backdrop. See, this is how I got the information. Don't delve too much into it, okay? I'm going to divide this essay into 3 parts. And when I say 3 parts, you need to mention the points in three parts, okay? Any point you talk about, the first part would be what that particular club is and why you are interested in that particular club. I would imagine that this has to do something with your personal background. This has to do something with your interests. This has something to do with your post-MBA goals, correct? So the first thing is we need to talk about that. Second, you need to be and this is where people lose out, right? You need to tell what you will gain in your career by participating in this club, right? So the first is, what is it that you will do? Second, what will you take which will help you? And the third, and this is the most crucial part, what will you do? How will you contribute? How will you create the impact? Obviously, this has to be based on what you have done earlier. For example, I wouldn't say that I would like to be part of the photography club because I've never done photography, right? So why would I join the photography club if I've not done so myself, right? If I have my own website, let's say I put it up on Flickr or wherever you store your photos, and let's say you have a digital album, right? It's something that you can share. So then what I would do is I would then say that, what is it that I have learned from photography? What has been my background? What specifically I would do with the photography club? So that's where the talk with the people helps. What is it that they do? Correct? What will you gain from that? So you need to be very specific on that point. Okay. Now you have 500 words, right? A lot of words. My suggestion would be to pick 3 stories or 3 clubs that you would like to be part of. Try to see if you can write for about 150 words, correct? So 100 to 150 words for each of the points. So that would basically give you around 400 to 450 words, right? You need to have a very strong beginning and you need to have a very strong ending. See, look at what it says. It says, we value students who create impact. What does impact mean to you? Correct? So you need to start off with something, that kind of precedes the examples. Otherwise, the example looks very abrupt. Have a start and have a closing, right? In the end, you should say tada, 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 and hence, and then you prove your point. And if you're able to connect the conclusion with the starting point, with the opening line, that also makes a very good fit, right? That's how I would approach this essay. Now, let's look at the next essay. It is the back of your resume essay, correct? I like that word, back of your resume. So if you look at it, back of your resume is like a blank page, correct? But what they are saying is that the essay is an opportunity to present yourself as an individual, right? We encourage you to think about your proudest accomplishments, interests, and passions and personal highlights that will help us to get you know as a person and potential community member. See, again, the theme, the recurrent theme, tell me something more. Okay, I have seen your resume. I have your GMAT course. I know where you worked. I know what your recommenders are telling me. Tell me who you are as a person, right? And very honestly, I think this is a dead-end essay, which means if you've really not done much in your life, which I think is not true, everybody has done something. It is just that we don't know how to articulate it, correct? That is usually the problem. But if you look at it, it says, we value creativity and authenticity and encourage you to approach this essay with your own unique style. It goes on to say, alternative submission formats may include a slide presentation, links to pre-existing media, that is personal website, digital portfolio, YouTube, etc., as well as visually enhanced written submissions. Okay. Now, you also have an option to give a written essay, in which case it's 500 words. But I would really encourage you to think a little differently, probably not think in terms of an essay, but try to be a little more visual in terms of representing who you are, correct? Now, there are three possible mediums. So the first is you make a video of yourself. The second is you create a PowerPoint presentation. And the third is you actually write something that is interesting about you, correct? So you have one of these three options. Let's take the first option. If you're going in for a multimedia format, if you're looking at a video that you want to upload on YouTube, make sure that you are talking about your life as a journey, right? I think what really works over here is to tell a story. Any of the formats, okay? Any of the formats, remember that there are two things. One is the message, the other is the method, correct? The message first has to be finalized. What is it that you want to tell? I think people jump into the method. So they say, should I do a video? Should I do a PPT? Should I just write? My take, that will come. I'm pretty sure that every year there are people who have gotten in using multiple ways, right? It's not that Cornell is going to just pick people who have used the video format. So my suggestion would be, try to focus on the message. What is it that you want to tell about yourself, correct? Now, you'll see that there are various phases in your life, correct? You have a personal phase. There is this professional part of you. There is this extracurriculars, hobbies part of you. And then there could even be your aspirations part of you, correct? In the personal part of you, I would like to know more, right? Who are you, right? Where were you born? Like what did you learn from childhood? Right? Tell me something interesting, something that makes me feel I want to meet this person, right? End of the day, whatever your message is, this is one question you need to make sure that gets answered, right? Is this someone they would like to meet? Is this person coming out of the paper or coming out of the video and say, you know what, I would love to meet this guy? That's what you want to project. Don't try to be too jargonish, right? Don't use a lot of words and try to complicate things. Just keep it simple, but make sure that you are presenting your message effectively, right? That's what I would say. And again, I'll go back to the fact that we have worked with candidates, and for each candidate, this brainstorming itself, takes time, right? We need to pick what are the areas of life that you want to focus on. So many a times it might help for you to draw these buckets and say, personal life, what is it that I want to say? Professional life, what is it that I want to say? By the way, I hope you're not talking about your job description, right? When you talk about work, it should be about your passion, right? It should not be about the mundane day-to-day things, right? So that's the second one. So if it's a multimedia presentation, it should not exceed 5 minutes, and trust me, 5 minutes of your life story can be long, right? So 5 minutes is a long time. See if you're also using some tools, some multimedia tools. I can suggest a couple of tools and I'll be giving those links below in this video, correct? So these are all simple tools that you can use to create a multimedia presentation. And finally, you have the optional essay, correct? And the optional essay is used for clarification, additional details about your application. My take is use the optional essay judiciously, right? People go berserk. They just say, oh, you know what, I forgot to write this thing. I want to also tell you this. No. Tell them something that you think really matters, right? So typically it would be one of two things. One, there is a gap in your experience, there is a gap in your education, or B, you have something which somehow did not fit anywhere else, right? Maybe you want to return to your current employer and you are actually on a sabbatical, right? So mention that, look, you know, why are you going on a sabbatical? Why do you want to go back to that employer? Tell them something that is meaningful, something that will impact your application. The way I would look at it is, imagine that you're sitting in an interview room. The interview is over, they asked you questions, okay, and there are plenty of questions that they have asked you. You left the room, and just when you were leaving, you remembered something very essential, very important to your application. What do? You turn back and say, just one more thing, I would like to, whatever it is, if you have something, put that as an optional essay. Otherwise, don't go crazy that I have 500 words, I need to talk more. Please don't so. So if you like this video and you are applying to Cornell this year, then I would love to get in touch with you, understand how we can work together for your application so that we end up, putting in a good application. So please go ahead and let us know. And in case you like this video, you would like to share it, please go ahead and do so. You can also drop in your comments. I would like to respond to each one of them personally, right? Thank you and all the best.